Believe. Believe.
We're here in Burbank. I'm joined by Ben, Merlini Wu, Kevin Purge Gamers Go Deck, and we're going to talk about everything that's happened in the Dota scene since TI5. Okay.
You act like this is your first time. You're a little bit nervous.
I am a little bit nervous. This is like a desk. This is different, you know?
Just pretend you're interviewing us too.
Yeah, okay, yeah. All right. You know, we have a lot to talk about. We have all these new teams you just qualified. First things first, though, the invites. So the first invite, obviously, the most important one, TI5 winner, EG, really obvious, everyone knew it was coming. They made a roster change. Now I want to hear your thoughts on that, the big roster change they made.
Do you want the drama?
Yeah, the drama. That's what we're here for.
All right. Well, AOI won TI, and then within 2 weeks, he was kicked off the team. But they swapped him out with an arguably better player of RTZ, and like everyone said, kill two birds with one stone. They take one of the best carry players in the game, they put him on their team, and they put AOI on another team. And while AOI has been succeeding a lot on his team, they're not having the best results, so I think it's overall been good for them, assuming their new team ends up performing about the same as the previous.
I think it's a little questionable just because RTZ's really good at carry, but I mean, I think moving Fear to support, I think that's going to be an overall downgrade for their team, just because if you looked at the drafts for a lot of the games at TI5, they had to ban out Naga and Techies. And can Fear play either of those to the level that AUI can? Possibly, but I'm a little bit dubious on that matter. So I think having RTZ is an upgrade, but having Fear move to support is an overall downgrade to the team. And overall, it's just barely net positive for them. And having to go through, you know, rebuilding chemistry and finding out, you know, hero pools and whatnot, I'm not sure if it's worth it in the end. But I have faith in PBD. He's, you know, carried his team thus far with developing this talent and whatnot, and he already did kind of develop RTZ, so
well,
the investment's already done.
played support in the past, though.
Yes.
Back when, I mean, that wasn't exactly their most successful track record, but I felt like he played support very well when he used to play support. That was with JO, MSS, himself, Universe, and I don't know who the fifth was.
Might have been Fogged or...
Yeah, I think it was about that. Yeah, it was when Fogged was on the team.
Yes, but he's not renowned for his support play. He's not like Kuro, who used to play carry, plays support, and plays support very, very well. When Fear played support, it was like decent, but it wasn't amazing. It wasn't really TI champion support.
I mean, he stood out on that team for sure.
I felt like he stood out. I feel like he
Really?
maybe just didn't get enough time to really like lock in the I'm a really good support player card.
I remember him playing like Rubik and like Nyx Assassin and like those kind of heroes.
And he'd go from like playing a hard support, and then like the next game they'd be like, "Oh, we're picking Sven, you're playing it." So it was like he didn't actually dedicate himself fully to playing support when he played support on that team. It was more like they were trying to find solutions, and they never quite became the best team. So I feel like he's gonna be just fine with support, honestly. I don't know. Maybe
I feel like he was like, you know, top 3 carry in the world, and then as support, he's not in the top 3 anymore. Which is what I'm trying to get. He's like really good on support, but he's not, again, TI champion support player.
Maybe we'll see. I think.
We'll see.
We just haven't seen enough games. They haven't played a game since TI. So
don't you think Artur and Sumail, like, they complement each other in terms of like hero pool and stuff? Like Artur doesn't play Ember or Storm Spirit or.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
And Invoker.
Or
I guess.
I mean, he doesn't want to really play those heroes, so I mean, he can handle the other ones.
He's more farm heavy, not as do shit, outplay heavy, I guess, is pretty much the heroes he doesn't play, right?
Yeah.
Like Ember, Storm, huge skill caps. Not that he's not very good, but he's more renowned for like his farming patterns, how fast he gets farm on like semi carries, like more hard carry kind of heroes like Shadow Fiend, for example.
Like he'll probably be better on the heroes that Fear played when he was playing those heroes, right? Like anti-mage.
Like Razor every game.
Yeah.
They picked Razor so much, but he played Razor a lot too in the past.
I think both of them are very common in the fact that if you're the other team, if you let them do what they want, you're probably going to lose, which you can't really say that much about other players. Generally, people say, okay, play your own game, but I think versus those two players in particular, you're going to get outfarmed by RTZ, and if you're trying to like split push and play a kind of gank heavy one, Sumail's probably going to outkill you too. So it's really scary, I think, going up against those two, and the mentality that the other teams must have going in.
I think everyone agrees they're the huge favorite going into this tournament. We haven't seen anything from EG since TI. If you had to put odds on it, what are the odds that they win ESL One New York, even with the new patch coming out?
Out of 8 teams, right? There's 8 teams total after all the qualifiers are done. I would say at least 20%, which I think is.
You think it's only 20%?
I mean, anything can happen. Like even at going into TI5, I would have said like Secret has like a 20% chance of winning it. Like
But
it's
that's 16
not,
teams, right?
yeah, but
It's single LM.
it's a high
Yeah,
it's a
okay.
high chance, but it's not like they have an 80% or something. Like they
Right.
have a good chance, but it's not like amazing. Like a lot of stuff can happen. in
So the
tournament.
4 seeded teams are 4 invited teams are seeded against the 4 qualified teams, right?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so that
It's
increases the
single
odds a little bit.
So that would knock out likely, maybe. You don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I mean, like, it's things will change, and you don't know. Maybe they nerf all of Sumail's heroes or something. Like, who knows?
Yeah,
Or
I
maybe
don't
they
know.
just have a bad set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
know. I would put it more like 30, 35% maybe.
So now we got the
Pretty high.
actual analysis out of the way. What did you guys think of how they did it? How they kicked them?
It seemed like it was actually AUI's PR error to me, not EG's.
Oh yeah, you mean like posting it on Twitter and stuff? Or?
Yeah, they told him about it privately, to my knowledge. I might be wrong on this slightly, but they told him about it privately. He immediately posted on Twitter because he thought it was ridiculous, which it is a very ridiculous situation. I don't blame anybody for reacting like how he did. Like,
Mhm.
I don't, like, it was the wrong PR thing, but, like, when that happens to you, you're going to be emotional, definitely. So he had the PR mistake, and it led to backlash on EG. Didn't allow them to make a statement properly to head things off, so it didn't really bother me that much how everything kind of went down. I think EG handled it really well once it came out. I think AUI reacted in a way that pretty much every human being would have. So I don't really blame anybody. Just kind of fun to chew over for a couple days there.
Yeah, he's probably still in his like honeymoon phase after winning TI. You know, that's probably a really good feeling. You're going to ride that for a little bit, and then it just gets like smacked by this
Yeah,
news that you don't
exactly.
expect. And
Yeah.
there's no good way to kick anybody, but you know, if you had to choose a way to kick someone, and the way EG handled it, I agree that it was handled very well.
Okay. So let's next topic, NA qualifiers. That was the most recent one and probably the biggest surprise. Fire beat, they
A lot of
beat
teams.
DC, they beat Complexity, and also I guess they beat out Cloud9. Fire was not one of the teams that people expected to qualify here. What do you think about those results?
I'm actually really like Fire a lot. I'm friends with Fluff. I played on LAN teams with him in the past, so I was happy to see them do so well. And I think this is one of the he's been making teams a lot since he ever played in TI back in like TI2
Yeah.
and TI3 obviously. But I think he missed the last TI, and he's continued playing a lot. But I think for once he actually landed. He found a team that has like a lot of super talented players, where they're like all very good at their roles, and the organization is good. It just seems like all of their roles perform very well. They got a very good player from Void Boys who did well in the NA qualifiers at TI. That's 747 or Suzy, as he sometimes goes by.
Played like TA like 5 times in a row.
Yeah, and he did really well.
Really good.
Plays really well. They grabbed Jo, who's improved a lot while he was in Korea and performing in Rave. So I think he's fit into the team really well.
He's drafting for them, I think.
And he's drafting for them.
Yeah.
So interesting ideas. He played a lot, scrimmed a lot of Chinese teams, for example, leading up to TI. And then he comes back to NA, was on Fluff's team at TI2 when they were actually Complexity. So old teammates, but they've all like split apart and learned new things, come together. That's pretty cool. And I think Moo's been playing really well in the off lane. Whitebeard has improved a lot, I think, since I first saw him playing with Fluff like a year or two ago. And who's our last player? I think
Fluff.
that's it. Fluff himself, yeah. And I think Fluff has always been one of the best support players personally. I don't necessarily think he's top 3 or anything like that, but I would definitely say top 20 or something, which is still pretty freaking amazing for the whole world in all the regions. So I think he's very good. I think all their roles are very good, and it seems like their team's working out, so I'm pretty happy for him.
I think the team was probably kind of overlooked just because people have heard of Fluff and Fire before, and they had a not a dismal 2014, but it wasn't like amazing. They actually disbanded before TI5 qualifiers because they're like, well, even if we did qualify for TI5, we wouldn't get that far, and that was pretty evident to themselves as well as everybody else. So they kind of been at that like right below tier 1 team, so people kind of dismissed them in hopes of Digital Chaos with Biru, who was like kind of the hot talk. He was hyping him up. Charlie talked to, he said really great things about him.
Envy had that like little rant about him. Yeah.
But you said 747. He was also on Boreal before Void Boys. He was really good. I run across him in pubs all the time. He always plays amazingly. Moo, that kid, I think, plays more NEL than everyone else. And back before Arteezy and Sumail were really big names, they played NEL and FPL like constantly. So he kind of reminds me in his work ethic that he just plays all the time. Whitebeard is probably the weakest link on the team. I've never been a big fan of Whitebeard. I think it's not. I also talked to Jimmy. He teamed with him when he was on Summer's Rift, and he was like, there's not that much of a support pool from NA to choose from. And he's like, yeah, Whitebeard. And he's like, at least he played position 5. That was Jimmy's kind of inside take on him. So
he's gotten better, though.
He's gotten better.
So. Like, I watched a bunch of their games, like at least 4, and he played fine. I didn't see him make any glaring mistakes. Like, he maybe had some inefficiencies a couple years ago, but like the games I watched the other day, I was like, yeah, he fits fine. It completely works. It seemed okay to me.
And what do you think about them? Do you think they're, like, if you had to rank the NA teams right now, outside of EG, like how would you put them right now?
It's kind of just one big blob. It's like EG and then the big blob of Cloud9 plus Digital Chaos plus Fire, and then Complexity is maybe a little bit below that blob.
Yeah.
So it's like 1 and then 2 through.
You don't think there's a hierarchy within that? Because Cloud9 has a pretty stellar record against Digital Chaos, right?
Yeah, but Digital Chaos beat them 2-0.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
But it's like it's like 7 or 9-2 or something overall.
I mean, I think that it just seems like they have a lot more chemistry. Cloud9 does than Digital Chaos. Digital Chaos, I think, has more talent, but
they also
not
had
as much
less
chemistry.
expectations, I think.
Yeah.
The first time that team was formed, that like all the comments were just like, oh, this team's not going to do anything. It's not as good as the old Cloud9, that kind of stuff. And maybe when teams have something to prove to everyone, they might have a little bit more team spirit, team effort.
It was also interesting because Ritsu actually tried out for Jimmy's team, Demon's team. I think sometime last year.
The Wizards and Priest team?
No. The Summer's Rift. And they were actually a pretty decent NA team at the time, and there weren't that many options. And he said Ritsu tried out for them, and they actually declined Ritsu because he wasn't that good at the time. And he's actually really improved over the past year. I remember seeing him play.
He has the highest GPM of anyone since TI5 on average.
His carry has definitely gotten a lot better than before.
I like Cloud9 a lot, actually. I think all their players really fit together. I saw the same. I felt the same thing when I saw the roster. I was like,
oh god,
man, this is going to be another. Why did C9 sign this? It seems like it's going to be another like decent team, but not like heavily competing at tournament team. But I think they've really impressed me personally. So I would agree. Like C9, I would say maybe Fire. Those two are the second and third best teams in NA right now, and the third is probably DC, and the fourth probably being Complexity is how I would rate things. But
that's true. Fire didn't actually play C9. That's right.
Yeah.
And how much do you think those captains learned from being coaches on their respective TI teams? Like 1437, coach of Team
really
Secret, and Bulba, coach of EG when they were at TI. So
I'm sure it's helped a lot. Like, I mean, those are the teams that were supposed to do the best, basically, Secret and EG. Both.
Yeah.
So if you're sitting behind and you're doing all the replay watching, like at the very least, you're watching more replays because you have to do it for your team. You know more ward spots. You know more about like how people play, like what item builds they go, how they spend their time, things like that. And I'm sure that it's just gonna make you a better player, surely, if you're the one that's supposed to do the research. So I'm sure that really helped out both Bulba and 1437 a lot, especially maybe 1437 since he's actually playing support. And I feel like watching replays is a little bit more important for supports based on like warding patterns and
because I plan out what you're gonna do. You don't like respond to what they do, right?
Yeah, I would say like offlane maybe feels the game more than a support does. Supports are more like planning and game knowledge, like, and by map knowledge I mean like where to put wards, where to deward, where the common spots are, what people's patterns are, like little mind games like that. You think about that a little bit more than offlane, where offlane is more like in-game performance, like rotations, predicting where your opponents are going to be, and then also executing team fights correctly.
Yeah,
So
supports
a little bit different.
are generally deemed the least mechanically skilled, but probably the most experience-intensive role. And 1437 has been playing Dota, like competitive Dota, forever. And he was an LG International. They were doing pretty well.
Yeah.
And then same with Bobo. Bobo's been involved. I mean, he was, I think, on EG at some point, and he's been through the whole mix.
TI2, right?
Yeah, they've just been playing for a really long time, and it just adds another year of experience as opposed to taking a year off. So as long as they're keeping up in some terms, I think it can't be anything but good.
So you think when these teams they come out, they have a lot of hype, a lot of expectations. Sometimes they lose, sometimes they win. When they lose, in the past there's always been this kind of, oh my god, are they going to disband? Like, are they tilting? Are they going to do all this stuff? But now with the major periods, they're stuck together for what, 2.5 months guaranteed. They can't make any changes.
I think.
Otherwise they.
I mean, it's. I don't really say it's stuck. It's like, oh, we have a 2.5 month period to try things out. If things don't work well, then whatever. We just reban for next majors.
Yeah.
Right? It's not that big a deal. Before it's like we have to stick together with this team for like 9 months, and then if we do poorly, we just wasted 9 months. If you like a 2-month investment, it's not that big of a deal for a competitive team. I think it's like about the perfect time that you can see, okay, is our chemistry good enough? If not, see you next majors on a different team and no bad blood.
Do you think pretty much any team that doesn't qualify for the first major is going to pretty much roster change almost immediately?
I don't think so, because we saw like Vega, they didn't qualify for TI, or they didn't, get past the play-ins, but they still stuck together. So I mean,
yeah, but it's like they'll have 3 shuffle pairs essentially, right? They're just not going to use.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like just don't do anything for the first majors, and then I mean, there's going to be so many teams that don't qualify. I think, CDEC, for example, they've stuck together for a really long time without any results prior to TI5, and I think they showed that if you stick with the team for long enough and you're pretty confident that you have very talented players and you have a high ceiling, then you will do well. Things just take time. I just honestly believe that a lot of these teams, if they stuck together for like 5 more months, they would just be so much better than just constantly, oh, this team sucks, let me find a new team.
Okay. I think a lot of that comes down to attitude as well, though, because if players they develop a bad attitude with their teams, and then you have like negative emotions with it, then that also really hurts you. So it requires you, like you said, to have high skill cap, stick with your team for a long time, have faith in your ability to win, but you also have to make sure that the drama doesn't leak in to your players, because if it does, then it's going to prevent those other good things from happening. So it requires a lot of people with good attitudes, I think, is going to make a big difference. So it requires a lot of stuff. So I think a lot of the disbands are just because, not only because you're losing, but you might say like, find a scapegoat and say like, well, this guy is maybe like 95th percent within the pro scene, but maybe if we had somebody that was like the 99th percentile of the pro scene of a certain role, that we would have won games. You might focus on that too much, and then that leads to roster swapping, which very often doesn't provide that much more, I would say. Like for NA this time, I would say like there's actually quite a few good NA teams. After most TIs, it'll be like full disbands, and it'll just make a bunch of like tier 2-ish teams, maybe teams that we don't expect really to go anywhere. But I feel like this year, both Cloud9, DC, and Fire actually have potential to maybe push themselves into tier 1. Yeah. So maybe they found the right mix of players. Maybe they've weeded out the weaker players. I'm not sure, but it's pretty fun to watch. I think
it was, wow, Complexity got that far in TI. We can definitely do the same. I think it was kind of...
NA did really well.
NA did really well.
It's a resurgence, North American resurgence.
There was never a surge to begin with, so
okay.
It's just the surge.
Liquid was top 8. I remember that.
Yeah. I mean, there's always been one good team, though, right? It's Liquid and EG, and that's...
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about Europe a little bit. The European invite, obviously, Team Secret and VP. Secret, huge changes to their roster. They get pretty much entirely new team other than Puppy. What do you guys think about that? I mean, they just played their first series today. They won 2-0. It was impressive. It was a decisive win, but, any doubts?
I casted most of their 2 games today, and the first one was pretty one-sided, and the second one was kind of a long-term outplay where they just out-split push, like decisively out-split push their opponents. Pylai Dai kept dying, but that's because he was split pushing, so I don't think that was too weird or anything like that. They definitely seem better than Navi in the set today. They definitely seem like a very good team. E didn't die at all. He didn't play badly at all. Pretty much all of their players made very good decisions, including Pylai Dai. They backed each other up. They had strategy. It seemed like they definitely had their game plan together, so I really feel like their coordination is really solid, and that's pretty much the typical Puppy effect. I feel like every team he's on, you're like, okay, they have a plan. This is what they're doing. They're split pushing. They're split pushing more. They're running circles around their opponents. Oh, they finally got them out of position, take the team fight, and boom, they did it. And even though they looked like they were going to lose game 2, it didn't end up happening. So I think they're in a really good place. That was the first time we saw them play, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them perform well at the tournament, because I think all their players are very good too. So.
Yeah, I think all their players are like, I think their average MMR is probably like 7,200 or something absurd.
Yeah,
out of those 5 players.
How did Weehaw play?
He played very good game 1. He was playing Queen of Pain, and he went about 6-0-3. He was against a Magnus mid, Dendy's Magnus, and Dendy got a lot of last hits, and he had a bunch of rotations. He rotated quite a bit in the early game, and most of them provided useful. In game 2, he had a rough time, but he was co-op versus a Phantom Lancer, and Phantom Lancer actually counters that.
Really?
Because you get Phantom Rush, your 3rd skill, and you just charge at him, and then you have a poor man's shield, he doesn't, and Quap has much less armor. Phantom Lancer has like 7 armor early on, so you have like poor man's shield plus 7 armor. You run at him, you get in melee range, so he doesn't even get to like kite you or anything, and then you lance him if you want, do damage there. At most he can throw a dagger, but if he throws the dagger, you can doppelgang to remove it, so any harass that Quap has is nullified. And then from there, he just gets a bottle, and boom, you're pretty much set, because then he can continue to spam lances and harass. So it's actually a good PL lane. The only problem is it doesn't transition super amazing unless you get tons and tons of kills. But he basically got outlaned, he got underfarmed, and his team, it seemed like his team carried him at that point because he was just a Quap with an Orchid. He did use his Orchid very well, though. Like, every time a fight would start, he would always put it on the right person, like the person that was going to duel, and with really good reaction speed. So I feel like it was just a bad game, in my opinion, and I don't think he's playing bad at all. He played very well the first game. Just game 2 was a little bit rough for him, and his team definitely carried him a bit with, like, the full split push thing. He maybe didn't do that as well as he could have.
Do you think they'll benefit from less, astronomical expectations? Because like when Secret reformed last year with, or later after their second reformation with Zai and Artur, people were just like, they're going to win every tournament, and then they set these super high expectations. They went to TI, pressure got to them. Kind of similar to what happened to DK that one time too.
I don't know if I'd say that's pressure though. Like, look at the drama that came out afterwards. Like, do you really think that was pressure? That was internal issues.
Yeah.
More than anything else. Surely is that what it looked like to you, Ben?
A little bit of both, and teams were studying them for months. But I think internal issues is probably going to actually be a problem for perhaps this one. I don't think that they have a lot of players that just sit there and follow, which is sometimes what you just need on a team. Like someone who has ideas sometimes, but like, okay, Puppy says, okay, do this, and then you just do it without
We know
questions.
Puppy's the shot caller this time, because last time it was like S4 kind of.
Well,
team.
it can change, right?
Yeah.
Because they have a lot of captains on the team too, which I think might actually be a problem too. Pylai, he likes giving instructions sometimes. Misery, he was a support player. He probably gave some instruction when he was on Cloud9 with No Tail. And then we have Weeha. He's a mid player. Mid players don't tend to give that much instruction aside from S4. And then you have EE, who did captain Cloud9 for a period of time too.
Right.
So I don't know. I think they just have like a lot of ideas. And if they can stick to Puppy's ideas and without giving him too much flack and they just like trust in his decision, then I think it'll go swimmingly well. But I'm not sure if they can just relinquish their position prior and just be a follower, a sheep. They don't. I mean, not like a sheep. A sheep is a bad term to put it, but sometimes you do need to be a sheep.
Okay. Do you think that they're probably like a solid in the 3 slot maybe in this tournament? Would you put them ahead of VP?
3 slot is tough. I think CDC's going to do pretty well as the team coming out from the Chinese qualifiers.
Right.
So 3/4, I would say.
So the team that qualified from the European qualifier, Vega, also no changes, nothing really different about that.
I was really surprised about that. I thought they were going to roster swap after TI for sure, but they stuck with it. That was very admirable.
I mean, they have some young players on that team. Some have some vets too. But did you expect that result out of the European qualifier? They beat NIP in the final. We didn't see Alliance or Na'Vi at all deep in that tournament. I think Na'Vi made the semis, but Alliance lost.
I mean, I kind of view EU as similar to NA in that there's a big blob of like Na'Vi, Alliance, NIP, Vega, Empire. Even like all these teams can beat each other. It just depends on what day, like who's playing what patch.
Do you think they're as a tier stronger than NA still?
As soon as you brought it up, I was like, is EU even that amazing anymore?
Yeah.
In previous years, EU was clearly the best one, but I would equate a lot of those teams to those other 3 NA teams we were talking about.
Yeah.
Maybe not DC, but Cloud9 and Fire. They both seem pretty good. Maybe about tier 2-ish, where tier 1 is basically like 4 or 5 teams tops.
Yeah. EU has like stagnated, I think, the past year, whereas NA has been on the up and up.
And now that we have the tournament systems now seem to really segregate it almost, so that you don't see a lot of inter-region much as before. Like, I don't see Fire playing against Na'Vi or whatever anymore, In the past, it used to be a lot.
Only on lands.
Yeah. Now it's only at LAN events. So, I mean, we're going to see, right? At at ESL, we're gonna see if and the NA representative can do well against the EU one.
Yeah. I always get these hopes in my head about teams that play in like qualifiers, and then they go to a LAN, and then you really see how they match up.
And they get exposed.
Very often it's different. Like how I feel the team is going to be. You don't really see what a team is like until they play the other best teams in the world, because it's the same thing as playing a pub. You can look amazing if you're playing against people that are way worse than you, but once you play somebody that are a little bit better than you, they make you look terrible. So we won't really know how good those NA teams are until they do match up against maybe the other.
TI5 they were about even. We had EG who plays really highly, Cloud9 or sorry Complexity which placed 9th through 12th, and then EU had Secret and VP which were I think like in that 5th/6th area, and then you have Cloud9 which placed significantly lower, I think around the same as Complexity. So I would say overall about even.
And you know, Alliance and Na'Vi didn't have the best results coming in. They had some roster changes too. But what do you think about that? Do you think that, you know, Alliance has a shot coming back from, you know, making the roster the same as when they were successful?
I don't know. That team kind of confuses me, I guess. I don't know what the... there's a problem exists. They're not winning games super consistently. But I really don't know.
I mean, they won today. They beat Vega today 2-0, I think.
Which is good because Vega has been performing pretty good recently, but I don't know what the problem, if there exists one, what it is. It's kind of reminds me of what happened at TI4 when Alliance performed really poorly. I was like, what's the issue? I really don't know.
They did get Leshrac one of those games. So
they got Leshracked?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
they got to pick Leshrac one of those games. So.
Okay. In TI4?
No, today.
Oh, and today.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you maybe, you know, win slightly less impressive if you play Leshrac.
But they won 2 games, so
Correct,
another game they won without Leshrac.
I think it speaks to how S4 went back to the team, because when we saw his player video during TI5, it was, you know, if I stay on Alliance one more year, I'm going to regret my decision. And he still went back to Alliance. So clearly he foresees, like, okay, in a year from now, I'm not going to regret my past year with Alliance, which means he sees a lot of potential in the team. So I think that's, you know, we should probably put more faith in that as opposed to what we feel like the team is probably going to do. I think they're going to do well, actually.
I mean, they trust him, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't have brought him back.
I mean, S4 wants to join your team, you're not going to say
Yeah.
no.
Exactly. It's not about trust at that point. You're like, yeah, we'll take you back. I don't care. If you could, like, hit them, and they'd be like, yeah, please, S4, we'll still take you back.
Okay. All right. And what about the other EU teams that, you know, we haven't mentioned, like the No Tails team, Monkey Business team, the 4CL? You know, Bambo, I saw like your former teammate making some crazy plays.
They won the elimination tournament.
Yeah. That was impressive.
Bambo was actually playing amazing. I watched a lot of those games in replay, and he is like literally next level on so many players. He like predicts things and like knows where things are going to be. It's really weird.
He played Sand King. He, you know, that Sand King game, he got like 2 Reddit threads about that. Just like him playing Sand King. Like how often does that happen, right?
He's really good.
He's really good. And he plays, I think he's actually really motivated to play FPL right now because they have a huge prize pool. So to my knowledge, I think he won 2 seasons in a row. But
really?
But he's usually like top 2. He's like top 2 or top 3 of FPL consistently with mind control is what people are saying.
So how is he not, you know, at TI doing like
it's
what's
a motivation
going
thing. Sometimes he just
throws.
I mean,
he has some some negative teammate aspects, like he can tilt, stuff like that. He tilts very easily. Maybe not very easily, but he tilts sometimes. He's a very confident person, basically. And when things don't quite go his way, it really tilts him. Like he views himself as one of the best Dota players, and he is definitely one of the best Dota players. But
yeah, you hear like people say, you know, Bambo's the best Dota player in the world sometimes.
Yeah,
right.
He really is. Yeah,
he runs a very fine risk-reward line, and if he doesn't have teammates that commit with him to that, then it usually just goes to 100% risk and no reward.
Yes.
Which it makes him look really bad, but in actuality, if you like think about it, and if his teammates were on the same page as him, then the team would perform amazingly.
We need 5 Bambos.
We do need 5
a team
Bambos.
of 5 Bambos.
Yeah, that's Ben's point is exactly what. Yeah, I watched him play Pudge that one game, and there were times where he'd like be on the map getting shit done, but none of his allies were nearby. And times like that, he'll get frustrated, be like, why aren't you guys knowing what I know and being where I am? And if they were with him, like a 200 damage nuke, he would have gotten a kill. But instead, he ends up dying to 2 heroes or something like that. And you're like, well, Bambo's stupid. But in reality, as soon as he respawned, he's like, I'm going to move here. They're going to be here. I know that's going to happen. If somebody else comes with me, it's a kill. But he doesn't maybe not communicate it extremely well. Or maybe
I mean, you
figures
played
out
with
as
him.
Yeah, he's actually pretty quiet.
Like
he's pretty quiet. Yeah, I would say he directed us a lot in the first couple months when we were there in Korea. So he definitely can captain, but he wasn't very able to do that in scrims in addition to live. So his effort levels or maybe his energy levels are not what it needs to be.
Do you think that team can get there though? 4CL.
Honestly, they really impressed me in the elimination tournament.
Because it's like I mean, Europe's a giant cluster of randomness at this point, right? You add in that team, you add in No Tail's team. They won 4v5 today with a mid Rubik miracle.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like I'm trolling you, but they were 4v5. No Tail's controlling the IO and the Tiny, and
Okay. That's hard.
Yeah, and they beat PR. So
Okay. Well, maybe not the best team, but
miracle mid Rubik. That's an interesting one.
bringing it back.
Yeah. So I mean, that team can do good too. I mean, like, and then you got the German team with Kuro and Fado. I mean, a lot of stuff going on. So I mean, pretty impossible to rank at this point.
Yeah. Definitely.
The EU scene is deeper, but I don't know if it's better than the NA scene.
Yeah. There's more players probably at a higher level, but not maybe the teams.
Yes.
Maybe the issue is that they have so many players that their friendships and things like that will keep the good players segmented. Like when we first got to Korea, for example, all the really good players that are now all on the same team were split across like 5 different teams or 4 different teams or something.
Bird Gang, Team Bird
Like
Gang.
Bird Gang had like MP or something, and MVP Phoenix had like
QO.
March. No, QO was on an entirely different team
What
called
team was
5
he
and
on?
Q. It's called 5 and Q, and they almost beat Jimmy's team in NSL Season 2. But then, you know what happened to the rest of QO's team? They all left, you know? Like, QO gets saturated into MVP, and then, bam, they finally make, like, a really good MVP squad, which is when we started getting wrecked.
Okay.
You know, they take all the good players and they put them in one
Right.
team. And that's why part of the reason they did so well this last year, because they had, like, all of their best players on one team, including MP. Like, MP didn't join them until after KDL Season 4, like, literally at the beginning of this year is when MP joined them. And then all of a sudden they do really well. At least 2 of their squads did very well. So maybe there's so many European teams and they're fractured by all their countries that they're not quite focusing all their best players on a teams like what seems like is happening in NA right now. Like, they take all the best players from all the last TI qualifiers.
They form like 2 teams.
For like
three teams,
4 teams, something like that. And now they're doing really well. Whereas EU still has a lot of spread, I feel. Like they have a lot of good players, but they're maybe not the best.
So VP, another team that, you know, we invited them to ESL and they didn't make any changes. What's their ceiling? I mean, they seem to be very happy with their, not very happy, but decently satisfied with their results at TI. They beat Secret, you know. But what is their realistic ceiling? Can they win? Can they be winning tournaments?
They're very talented and they're very, very versatile too. Like FNG plays weird heroes now and then. Illidan with his carry silencer, as well as like Slark, I think, which has not been that popular. Like they run a lot of things that are different. So I think that's definitely what sets them apart from a lot of teams, and that's why I think they have a very high ceiling. It's just because they have so many strategies. They don't need to copy other teams. A lot of other teams, they just take what other teams do and then they perfect. And then VP's a little bit different. They can run those strategies, but they also have their own like unique playstyle. It's kind of like a Chinese European playstyle. I think someone talked about it at TI, but that's kind of how I feel about VP. And as long as they stick together, which they have, then I think they can do very well. I would actually put them at 2/3 for this event.
Okay.
I think they're super good as well. Yeah, they just have tons of talent. They stay together. You're right. They have different strategies and things like that. And I think DK Phobos is a little newer. I believe that he had a full-time job in esports prior to going back with the team, and he seemed like more of a recent addition. So I think him and the rest of the team have a lot more to grow. So I could definitely see them doing very well. They impressed me a lot of TI.
Okay. All right. And then we can talk about C now, since we had that. Talked about MVP a little bit already, but Fnatic with their new roster, they won the C qualifier. It was Mushi, Black, you know, that team. What do you think about those guys?
Okay, so their full roster, for you guys that don't know, are Black, Mushi, previously Chrissy, now goes by DJ, Ohio, and Net. Now, Net was on Orange the couple years that they did really well, like TI 3-ish, I believe. Plays a really good line.
He was on Titan, right? Was he on Titan that year?
I think he was on
TI 4
as well.
TI 4. Ohio was definitely on
Wait,
Titan.
so why does Black play on an SCA team and not on a European team or a German team, let's say? Is it because the German teams don't want him, or does he prefer to play an SCA? Like, I'm still not exactly sure about that dynamic.
I mean, I think he tried a North American team. He tried a North American mix, at least. Stinker last year, he had a pretty bad experience, so he was probably like, okay, I'm going to try every region. So I'm going to hit up every region at least once, every TI.
Yeah,
he tried Europe.
For me, it seems like he actually prefers the SCA teams. It seems like they
or Chinese.
They trust him more. Yeah, or Chinese. They like trust him more. They like let him do what he wants. And
well, Vici was doing extremely well when he was on it.
What I would say is the C teams, including China, are more tryhard. I would guess that they're more all in, and I'm not talking about like full time. I'm talking about your life all in. Like they don't have a lot of outside things.
Is the
that are
cost of
distracting
living's
them.
less, maybe?
I mean, I don't think he cares about that. Like, he's making plenty of money. The cost of living doesn't matter. It's more like the reason.
No, I mean for like C players. It's easier to make a living streaming or off of Dota prize winnings if your cost of living is less.
I don't think it's about that. It's more like they want to win more than anything else, and it's more they don't even like the reason that the Koreans were good, in my opinion, and good in other games is because they give everything to it. They live in like a 3-bedroom apartment with like 16 dudes and 1 bathroom. Like that is they're willing to give that up. They don't they give up their private space. They give up their girlfriends. They give up like outside social interaction. They literally just play all the time, and I feel like I see that more in the C teams and the Chinese teams. The willing to give everything up. I mean, did you guys ever see those postings that Mushi's Facebook admin would have, like looking over their schedules when he was on DK? It was like Dota the entire day, and they would play basketball for like 2 hours, and that was like their relax. Like it was like they give everything up, and maybe Black just is that kind of competitor. Like he just wants to give everything up and go for the win. That's me bullshitting. Might be wrong.
I mean, they beat MVP, and MVP this MVP squad arguably is stronger than the one at TI, right?
I would say so.
Yeah.
We had them up. I don't know if I'll find them.
MP, QO, March, Heen. I forget the last guy.
And Febby.
Yeah.
And they swapped out KP and Nuts, which I think is fine. MP is definitely one of the best Koreans. MP, QO, I think maybe March is he's not as mechanically gifted as some other players.
But he's a good captain.
Off lane, but he's a good captain and drafter, so I think it's fine. And then Febby is very good at 4, I think. Very, very good. Talented enough to play core, but he's a little bit better on a support because his throws don't quite matter as much. Because once in a while he does throw. But he's kind of like QO like that. He's like extremely talented, but once in a while he'll mess up a little bad. But on support, it's a little bit okay. I think that's a better gamble to take. And I think Keen has also improved massively in the last 2 years. So yeah, I think their new roster is really good. Definitely
it was still a really close series between them and Fnatic.
It was, but the question is the same. Is Fnatic good enough to beat the Tier 1 teams in the other regions?
I mean, MVP Phoenix beat Tier 1 teams in other regions, and if Fnatic beat MVP Phoenix, then Fnatic should be able to beat Tier 1 teams in other regions. And I think, I mean, they undoubtedly have the talent, like Mushi and Black, and I think even Chrissy played really well. I'm a little sad Rave didn't make it to TI5, but
their players are doing well.
Yes, their players are doing well, and
JO.
I think they could have done well if they were invited, let's say, but they fell a little bit to the qualifiers, and even the 2 SCA teams that beat MVP or beat Rave, like they went on to do very, very well. So Rave, I kind of consider on the same tier as like MVP, Hot6, and Phoenix, and they would probably perform similarly, and I think their players this year will perform similarly.
Yeah, I think Chrissy was their best player, the best player in Rave. We felt that as soon as we got to Korea as well. We noticed him right away. He owned us in a couple of games, and we're like, damn, this guy's actually really
JL said that when he first got there, Chrissy was 4K MMR. Was that Chrissy? I think it was,
He didn't play much solo. I actually started playing party with him, I think, when he actually started trying, and he carried me like at least 100 party MMR back then, and it was like incredible. He just like wrecked everybody, and then I checked like a month later, and he was like 6.5, or he was like 6K party MMR or something like that, and he used to be like 4.7. I don't think it was because he was worse. It was just maybe he didn't
play that much. Okay.
Or
calibrated.
He doesn't try that hard in his pubs, or maybe plays with bad friends or something. It was, he was good from the start. Maybe he made some mistakes. He maybe improved a lot, but he definitely was very good when we first got there too.
Okay.
And he's been playing really well on Fnatic, to my knowledge. I've seen a lot of threads about him. Like everybody's like, wow, he's actually carrying the team sometimes. And I could see that out of him. He's very good.
So thus far, the field, other than EG, seems to be quite, anything can happen pretty much between them. Okay, so last slot, China. And, we actually don't know the Chinese qualifier yet. They play the final in like, I think 12, 13 hours maybe. And the final is IG against eHome. Now, this is a bit of a surprise. Obviously, no Vici, no LGD, the 2 teams that, did well at TI5. Obviously, a lot of roster swapping in Chinese scene always happens, and they're always like kind of nonsensical roster swapping. Like you don't understand, like, why did you go to this team? But do you guys know a lot about the Chinese scene? I know you have something to say about
LGD, they lost Xiao 8, so that's already a pretty big blow.
Well, let's just say he's coming back for TI6, right? I mean,
most likely. But he's not here for ESL New York.
Right,
and,
okay.
LGD without Xiao 8, I mean, yeah, they have a lot of talent, but no hand to guide them. So that's not terribly surprising. I think it's really surprising that Vici lost to eHome. And there's some people that you don't even know. Old Chicken, 11, and Kaka. A lot of them C2I, I think most people know.
Yeah.
But
I looked at their Wikipedia pages. One of them's got 7,500 MMR on a China server as a support. So
That's
I mean,
pretty good. Old Chicken played on Energy Pacemaker.
Old Chicken.
He was one of the better
What
players.
an
on there.
ID, dude.
On
What
Energy
an ID.
His name
Pacemaker.
His name is ridiculous. But Energy Pacemaker, they were doing pretty well. I watched them play a little bit before TI5 because there was like that 2-month period where
That name too, Energy Pacemaker.
yeah,
Like,
I don't know.
what?
Old Chicken.
Old Chicken of
Old
Energy
Chicken,
Pacemaker.
yeah.
But he was decent. I'm
Yeah.
surprised that he got picked up by a big name like eHome, but I'm even more surprised that they beat out Vici Gaming. So Vici, they went through Black, and then they turned to How, and then now they turned Burning.
Yeah, and it seems their best results with Black.
Well, the thing is, How and Burning have the old stereotypical Chinese playstyle, which is farm very, very safely, don't die, and then win the game through your out farm and
Ironically, that's
smart
not
farming.
How won TI, right?
It isn't, but
Yeah.
that's what he did a lot in Vici.
Right.
And sometimes he played like Ember Spirit and played pretty aggressively, but I think him and Burning both, they have this mentality that like dying is bad in general. When it's sometimes bad, but Black takes a lot more risks. Like when he played Invoker or even I think he played like Stark a lot too. Not his anti-mage because anti-mage is pretty much only the farming playstyle, but his other heroes,
Yeah.
he would die for the team a lot. He would create a lot of space. He would pressure the team a lot, and I think that's something that How and Burning lacked a lot, and they're still having a lot of trouble shifting from the old playstyle to the new playstyle.
Like the aggressive style.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
CDEC, yeah. Well, that team. I mean, like, you look at on paper, the Vici is amazing, but then they don't seem to perform.
I think it was 2-0.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't see those games. They were probably like in 3 or 4 a.m. for me. But did you guys get to watch any of that?
Nope.
It's also 3 or 4 a.m. for us.
Yeah. We're in the same time zone now. That's right. But okay, so let's talk about the other team on the other side, IG. Not a lot of people expected a lot coming out of TI. You know, they kind of like IG's done. You know, Ferrari's old. You know, he doesn't have it anymore or whatever. They got some new players. They have, you know, what, Mini Super?
Mini Super.
Not the Super that people know from Vici, but the other Super. Do you know? I mean, they got Rabbit. He's obviously very good. You know, with those big contract transfer fees and all that stuff. Is this team gonna bring IG back to?
Rabbit was like kind of the predecessor to Maybe. It's like the pub star that was really, really good and then transitioned into professional that no one really knew. And I think Maybe is mechanically a little bit better than Rabbit, but Rabbit's still very, very good. And he impressed me when he was on LGD. He played Weaver a lot, but he would do a lot of the same things that I saw Maybe do, which is like, you know, pressure the enemy team a lot, and he's like out doing these seemingly weird things, but he's creating a lot of space and doing a lot as a one position that's not farming and just getting big, which pretty much any one position can do, and they think that's what they're supposed to do. But he was one of the few ones that's like, okay, he's playing outside the normal play style. He has his own unique kind of twist, and it's very unusual to see that in that sort of scene. So I think it's really good that they picked him up. And again, you can say that Burning's really good, and yes, he did win IG, like that one game at TI that everyone will remember. He won that one game, but there's a lot of games that he kind of lost that's not super evident.
Okay.
It's not like, okay,
it wasn't like one big misplay. It was just a general like strategy.
Yeah,
okay.
And I actually think that overall it was slightly detrimental for their team to have him just because of him being super predictable.
Does he still have it though? Yeah,
I think he still has it. Again, it's just a matter of shifting. Like I think Ferrari transitioned very well from old school to new school, and he's like super good on a lot of the in the new patch. And we all like, oh, 6.83, 6.84, this is the patch for Ferrari, but we never said that about Burning. So
okay. All right. Well, okay. Let's talk about some general stuff then. Give me a prediction. Obviously, everyone's going to predict EG to win. That's like the pretty easy prediction to make. But if you had to make a bold prediction, like something that probably won't happen, but would be cool, or you think has a chance of happening?
I'd like to see Fire win, but I feel like once they get to the main tournament, they're going to be a little bit outmatched, maybe.
Maybe Fire semifinals. I mean, if they I probably won't get matched up against EG, but like, let's say they get the Chinese team or Secret or something. You think they can win that series?
I'm not sure if they match up against EU. I don't know, but China, I feel like they have a bit of an advantage.
They have a Techies player, right? So
yeah, exactly.
I'll say Fnatic.
No, it's 6.85 after, so we don't know if Techies is.
I'll say Fnatic will make semifinals. That'll be my bold prediction.
That would actually be cool too. I'd like to see them win. I'd like to see basically everybody but EG and Secret win.
Okay. But Secret's not even like a favorite, really. Like they're
I guess
No.
there's just a lot of teams that
Yeah.
I really like going into this tournament. Actually, I'm really happy with the teams that got formed after TI
Okay.
this year. A lot of players I feel like deserve it.
so 685 coming out this week, or most likely this week. What do you think effect this will have on the tournament?
Well, it was actually similar to last year. It was like, okay, TI hits, and then a month dead period, and then patch, and then ESL.
Mhm.
So it's
Exciting. First tournament, first
exciting.
LAN tournament on the
and there's a lot of big teams going, and no one really knows what to expect. I think. I mean,
patch.
Patch is like supposed to be balanced, but at the same time, it's a big number. It's not like 6.84D. It's 6.85, which is a big deal because the letters mean small balance changes, but this one's like a I don't know if you could like capitalize it or like skip a few letters or something, but that's what it more feels like rather than an overhaul. There's no like, I don't think there's going to be like any huge changes like, I don't know, limit stacking or like no more stacking of creeps. That would be a big change. That is not terribly far-fetched, but that would not be in this sort of patch. You can't expect it. Or like a big offlane change, Roshan change. Those don't
I mean,
seem
those
like it's
usually
gonna
are
be-
in the big game update, right?
Yes.
So it said balanced update, so maybe some, you know, slight nerfs to like the heroes that are very popular
Lesh,
right
Lina,
now.
Glimmer, Solar. Those are my 4.
Oh, okay. You think Solar Crest?
Yes.
Definitely. Okay. What about Storm Spirit? You think Storm Spirit?
I think he's, I mean, I think
Anti-Mage?
he's relatively okay. They're both relatively okay.
Anti-Mage probably
Yeah.
kind of like a response to Leshrac and Lina being
Yes.
really good, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe not Lina, but yeah.
AM's
Bloodseeker?
okay against Gyrocopter as well.
And
Like, it's-
Phantom Lancer. He's good against like all of the super in heroes. So it's not. I mean, he's super popular and he's pretty good, but in terms of the hero actually being in balance, I don't think so.
What
Yeah.
about Wyvern or Bloodseeker?
I think Bloodseeker is honestly kind of okay. Like
His win rate was terrible at TI,
Yeah.
and the big weakness of the hero was like really glaring. Like he got owned in the mid lane by Sumail. Like he can die to a lot of burst damage, and if you just focus him in the middle late, even if he has BKB, he still dies.
Yeah.
So that was people found that out, and they're just like, okay, well we don't even care about Bloodseeker.
he's
So
not that great late.
Yeah,
he
he's-
really isn't.
he's not
Even
that
if he
great.
has a really good early game, he gets Midas and all this stuff, he always peaks off. Maybe it's bad item builds. Maybe like, and by that I mean like the item build maybe isn't ideal that he goes with like SNYs into like BKBs, but he doesn't feel that strong to me. In pubs he can be really good, but that's people just abusing bad players more than anything
Yeah.
else.
Can we
Same with Storm.
I want to
Yeah.
talk about something funny. All the 6.84 patch changes that everyone thought was going to be huge, but ended up meaning nothing.
Which ones?
Like,
Alk.
well, let's think about it. Alk, the
Alk Scepter,
Aghanims thing. No one ever used that ever.
Centaur Eggs.
That's
Centaur
like,
eggs,
I
right?
mean that's still built and it's still situationally good. But
Okay.
that happens every patch. They'll be like,
Yeah.
oh my god, this is gonna
Well,
be
yeah,
the
that's
most
what we're
overpowered
talking
thing."
about right now. Can you think of something from 6.84 that was that's still in it?
I thought Octarine was going to be overpowered.
Okay, you thought Octarine was going to be crazy.
Yeah.
And
I thought Glimmer Cape was just going to be meh, and Glimmer Cape is
it's like the best
Yeah.
item by
Yeah.
far. It's like not
Yes.
even close. Everyone gets it every
This was
time.
before it was even had
It,
a
like-
mana cost.
It like single-handedly removed Necrolite from the pool, right?
I don't necessarily think that's just because of that, but Glimmer Cape stops a lot of things from being useful, but it also is kind of turns every support into a defensive hero, which is one downside of the item. You can pick like any offensive hero that has a slight mana pool and buy Glimmer Cape, and all of a sudden you're like, I'm a Shadow Demon now. Like you actually feel like you're a Shadow Demon. You can save an ally or a Dazzle, you know? Like
Yeah.
you instantly
or
transition. that.
Abaddon.
Or Abaddon. It's like it kind of makes those heroes. It doesn't necessarily make them bad because they can also buy, and then they're like, I'm 2 Dazzles now.
Didn't everyone think the Lotus Orb was going to be used a lot?
Everyone thought Lotus
Yeah.
Orb would be super overpowered. That was like the most.
People
But
were like Lotus Orb, like, oh my god.
we realized the buildup is just terrible.
It's yeah.
You get armor and regen. It's like
It's
ugh.
only good on like strength heroes that naturally have a lot of HP. That's the only
Mhm.
time it's good, and I think it's only good against a lot of hexes too. Like the whole spell reflection thing can be overpowered, but it's almost.
But Hex
never
is
good.
terrible now.
But now you can remove hexes. Is what I'm saying. You can be like a stun remove. Now you're like, now I'm actually Abaddon by having a Lotus
Yeah,
Orb
that's true.
against hexes.
I mean, you can just use Glimmer.
Yeah, that also
Glimmer's
just
just
solves,
better.
and it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
Maybe it's too expensive. Maybe lower the cost of Lotus Orb a little bit.
Yeah.
They're gonna buff that item.
If you just nerf Glimmer, I think everything else will fall into place. Like all the items are crap compared to Glimmer. Like Lotus Orb, terrible compared to Glimmer.
Force
Abaddon,
staff,
Force Staff, yeah, they're
Yeah.
all just terrible compared to Glimmer.
you're definitely right about that.
Okay.
It's Solar Crest is different because Solar Crest
Yeah.
allows you to take out Roshan, which is incredible, as well as Siege High Ground.
And
Glimmer is
and
not
it
really
builds
useful.
out of something that people usually buy anyway.
Yes.
When they're in the early game. Okay.
That's also why I think the item is really, really good. And it can be used on BKB units. It's just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, it's the same thing for Glimmer Cape. I mean, like the item, the build up for it is something that supports probably will get anyway. It's useful for them. You know, like what is it, a cloak? right? What about Techies? You gonna get nerfed? Techies gonna get nerfed?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Like, nobody picks him. They ban him sometimes, but I feel like nobody picks him.
I feel like Tusk might get nerfed a little bit. Tusk and Techies is really strong. I think that potential is like really, really high. So one of those two will get nerfed, I feel like. And once one of those two gets nerfed, the combo won't be so strong.
What about adding? You think they're gonna add Oracle or Earth Spirit, or is that too much?
I
might be
think
too much.
I think big gameplay is.
I think Earth Spirit is about ready, personally. And I think Oracle is.
I still have nightmares about Earth Spirit.
I don't even know what Oracle does still in game. Sometimes I'm just like.
Oracle is really good at stealing kills as a support because his damage output is so high. You like have to continuously steal kills, kind of, and it requires your team to kind of know what he does. It's basically like.
I hope that's with any hero.
No, but like Oracle is extremely.
Gotta know what he does.
It's like no, it's like extremely important. Like it's like if you play like Crystal Maiden, like your teammates don't care what your spells do. You're like,
yeah,
oh, it disables
there's
them.
like blue stuff happening, and it's good.
Yeah.
Essentially,
but
that's what
Oracle's
they're like. They
like,
know.
oh, you need to know, am I magic immune right now? Am I immune to stuns? How much heals am I going to get after this
Right,
shit
okay,
runs
yeah.
out? Like,
Got it.
you don't really necessarily
It
know.
does. I didn't even know it didn't make you invis anymore.
Yeah.
That was like a while ago,
it
right?
removes disables, basically.
Yeah.
And it's if your opponents don't realize that, they waste 3 seconds of a 6-second invulnerability / heal thing, and then all of a sudden you don't get as much kick out of it. Like, it's really good with lifesteal heroes. That can it's basically like a satanic. Basically, if you have any basic lifesteal, like so it's really good for some situations, but it can't farm very fast. Oracle.
We don't know if the
Is
gender.
it a he or she?
Yeah, we don't know the gender.
It's definitely a male. Surely.
It's male.
Oracle
Okay.
can't farm very fast. I feel
The
like
Oracle
Oracle's
in the Matrix
close,
was female,
but
so no, I could see your confusion.
Oh, I think Oracles are generally female in
Yeah.
fantasy.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
It could be an it. I'll give
Yeah.
you that.
Okay.
Okay,
All right,
yeah.
Purge.
All right. Well,
we understand.
regardless, I think Oracle's maybe ready. Nobody's playing the hero in pubs because the win rate's really low.
With Huskar.
With Huskar, it's really good. With other heroes, I don't know. It's a problem because people have to understand how the hero works to play it correctly, and because nobody does, we don't know if it's overpowered or not.
Okay,
Well,
got
it's
it.
because
Okay,
his
okay.
ult got changed. It used to be like 20-second cooldown,
Yeah,
make you
now it's
invis,
like
and now it
80,
got yeah.
yeah.
So I want to talk about the potential ESL One has on major invites. So we probably we don't know who Valve's going to invite, but obviously EG's going to the major, right? No matter if they finish last at ESL One, they're going to major.
I would say CDC as well.
CDC, okay.
Yeah.
So
I'd say if they finished 8th, they still probably get invited.
let's go down the list then.
Okay.
VP, if they finish 8th, will they get invited to the major?
I think so,
Could be.
personally.
I
Well,
don't know.
okay, we're assuming at least 10 invites, similar to TI, or are we assuming less?
I mean, let's be conservative and say like 8.
8?
If they super flop, then I think they won't make it. But
I mean,
I'm sure
you can
they'll
say
do
that they're like let's just ballpark 2 teams per region, with EG being an exception.
Okay.
Like I think that VP could be they're one of the most consistent and best in EU, top 2. I would say. I don't think that's that far fetched.
So both Secret and VP, Secret maybe has to at least get the
Secret
semis,
has to
right?
get like top 4.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
Actually,
Since it's new roster.
CDC's going, EG's going. Secret, if they get finals, probably going. If they're top 4, maybe.
yes.
VP, top 4, definitely going.
Top 4 definitely going. Top 8 probably going.
Okay. Fire, they gotta win. Get to the finals. Get to the finals. That's good enough, right?
Top 5. No, I think they have to win.
They have to win against.
Yeah,
Like,
because-
if they lose to EG in the finals, you're gonna be really gonna be like, no, we're not
Yeah,
invite that
because
team.
you can't justify inviting them over Cloud9 or the other NA teams or Digital Chaos. I don't
true.
I don't
Okay.
think you can make the case unless they win.
What if the who Cloud9? What if they go and win Nanyang? You know.
Well, are invites going to happen before Nanyang? I would
Yeah,
assume so.
probably, yeah,
right?
actually.
So
That's true.
But we're basically saying whatever NA team wins. If an NA team can win ESL One New York, you're saying they're going.
But it has
the
to be
major.
Fire, right? It can't be.
It has
any
to be
other.
Fire,
There's,
Yeah,
there's
I
only
guess
one
that's
ES.
true.
they have to. I think they have to win. If they're second, it's
Okay.
like, well, what about Cloud9 or
Okay.
Digital
Got
Chaos
it.
would
So-
have probably done the same
Yeah,
thing.
they
So
put them in
they'll-
the qualifier
So
for sure.
they
but
have to win. Okay, got
Yeah,
it.
I think so.
Vega. Vega, they gotta win, right?
Vega, I would say
They didn't even
top.
qualify to TI. So, I mean,
Yeah,
like, they gotta win.
I think they have
Yeah.
to win.
Okay.
They're in the same boat as Fire.
Fnatic top 2 maybe. Right? They're the only C team. Like, I mean,
yeah,
they're not gonna invite MVP. So
they're probably the best C team right now.
yeah, they're the best C team.
Well, it depends on when invites come out, because if we have ESL and then MLG, like let's say they get semifinals in both, then that's a pretty
okay.
good invite,
Yeah,
right?
that's a good point.
So we don't know when it's going to hit. But if it's just ESL, let's assume invites are coming directly after ESL. I would say semifinals for Fnatic.
Okay. All right. And the Chinese team, if it's eHome or IG, they gotta win.
I think IG has less of a roster change, so I think they can potentially place lower.
Yeah, but they did so bad at TI.
They did so badly at TI, but they have more of the same players. So
Right.
I think
Semis
I
or
would
finals.
probably weigh that more.
Okay.
I would say yes.
eHome has to win.
eHome.
Definitely.
Yeah,
eHome
eHome
has
has to
3.
Look at the old chicken getting
old chicken.
invited.
Yeah, old-
Old chicken
eHome has
invite.
to win. IG, I would say
Okay.
like semifinals.
All right.
That's fine.
All right, so last thing. I don't want to. We're almost at an hour at this point. Went by really fast. I had a lot of fun. But let's talk about you guys. What have you guys been up to since TI?
Been sitting in the background of Moonduck Studios.
Oh yeah,
and,
you're a part of a new studio. That's
I am,
right.
yes. And Toby recognized me in front of 60,000 people today. That felt good.
Okay.
It's like Purge with Moonduck. Everybody's like scared to, because our name's so bad, they don't want to be associated with us. So, but Toby took the jump.
Okay.
And it was really nice. But we just had the elimination tournament. Unfortunately, my brother got married, so I wasn't able to cast very much of it.
Unfortunately.
No,
my
seriously,
brother got married.
No, I would have loved to be
Did
there.
you give a speech?
I did not. I was not the best man. I was second or third in line, something like that.
Okay.
How many brothers do you have?
Just one.
Wow.
Oh my God, he didn't. The best man.
I didn't get it.
If you were my brother, I'd make you the best man.
Same.
Thank you.
Okay. I'd do that for you.
But it was good. The tournament was pretty cool. If you guys don't know how the mode worked, basically every hero bander picked for the series is gone for the rest of it.
Yeah,
So
I like that. That was fun.
it changed things up a little bit. So, we didn't get to a game 5 in the grand finals, so we didn't see anything.
But game 4 was
ridiculous.
really cool. Yeah.
Game 4 was cool. A lot of the game 3s as well were like weird drafts, like tier 2 carries and mids and stuff, and like
That's
weird.
awesome.
It was like weird things that kind of you don't really see very often.
You guys should just had like a ban phase at the beginning of the entire thing for 10 heroes or something.
Yeah, just ban like a crap load of them.
Because the first game is
It
essentially
was
the same, right?
standard, yeah. Sometimes. Some of them were
What about you? What have you been up to?
Well, I've been casting a lot more. Casting some BTS EU games this week. Casted a little bit of Nanyan qualifiers.
Yeah, because you were like a panel guy for a
Yeah.
while. What made you like be a panel guy? Because you were casting for a while and then panel and then back to casting.
Back when I was casting a lot, there were a lot of games that were pretty much over. It'd be like 30,000 gold lead, and then there'd be like 30 more minutes of waiting for the game to end, which is really painful for a guy like me because I don't actually like talking more than I have to, especially during cast.
You like being efficient.
Yeah, I like being efficient. And
Okay.
like, if I don't have anything important to say, I'm just not going to say anything. But you can't do that in cast. But
Right.
now the games, like, even if you're 20,000 gold up, you can still lose pretty easily, actually.
Yeah, because usually the draft is like the team
Yeah.
that's 20,000 behind has like a super hard carry or something.
So Dota it has evolved a lot more in like the past year to where games aren't decided at the 20-minute mark. Or remember, I like
So you like casting more.
yeah, I like casting more because the games are more interesting to analyze and I don't have to fill in with fluff.
And
for
what's
20.
what's harder, casting or being on the panel for you?
Let's see. I would say probably panel is a little bit harder just because you don't ever have any break time. Like when I'm casting, I generally only have to cast like half the games, but when you're on panel work, you have to watch all of the games.
Right.
And
you got to be like alert the whole time.
Yeah.
You can't just be like zoning out and stuff.
well, you can't zone out while you cast.
Right,
though.
but if you cast a few games when you're not casting,
Yeah.
you can zone out.
Mm.
Right. So okay, well, we'll see you on both. We'll get you a little bit panel, a little bit casting.
Yeah, and I haven't casted with Toby, I think, in a really long time.
Oh yeah, okay.
So that's actually kind of fun too, because generally I think I casted one game with them at the EU qualifiers, but I mean I love working with the Beyond the Summit people like LD and Gods, but I cast with them all the time, so it's much better to like okay, sometimes I get a fun cast with Winter, or even cast with Purge, or sometimes I have an Ala cast with Cinderin or OD, and it's just fun to work with all the people instead of just being limited.
Since you're not technically affiliated with the studio, you can give us a completely unbiased opinion on which studio is the best, right?
I guess so.
Yeah. So how would you rank them?
The one that has the most Merlinis.
Oh, okay. So
I am the one true.
Come on, you gotta
Merlini.
give us. I was trying to get to a real human moment from you, Ben, and you.
What? How am I supposed to deem which studio is the best?
Well,
I've
give me
seen-
your opinion.
Moonduck has been alive for like 3 weeks now.
Yeah, it's just like any new team
right.
that's just formed.
Like
gotta assess
Secret,
their
which we
potential.
haven't seen
Yeah,
play
you
for
gotta see
3
their
weeks.
Moonduck had their first tournament.
And we have the best shit posters too.
Yeah, they had the
Slacks
best
makes
tournament.
the
They have
best shit.
slacks.
I don't
It's
like
okay.
shit posting and that kind of
Okay,
stuff.
so Moonduck third.
Moonduck,
Good.
I would have to.
Would you put them
third.
below GD even?
No, there's no way. Come
Wow.
on, we simulated half of them. How could
They're-
you say they're worse than?
I mean, on average, right? You take the average.
Good
like,
Studio's neutral. They
technically-
don't do anything, so I don't have an opinion. They
No,
shit
they,
post.
They do FPL. Yeah, Draskell.
They do
Will me?
FPL.
Rascals with us.
Draskell is with both technically, right? Since he's not exclusive. Is that how it works?
None of us are exclusive
Right.
in our studio.
Moonduck I'll put as 4 just because they rub me the wrong way with their shit posts. Okay.
Slacks has
Good
some great-
Studio
Slacks-
is.
some great content.
Slack's been doing work though. He has.
Did you see that video about how the name came out?
The elimination mode video was amazing. I thought that was really good. The one about Envy was amazing, where he like did the whole like, "This is eternal envy." You know, like
I think I missed that one.
you didn't see that one. That one's
Slacks
amazing.
is not my
All right,
style
all right,
though.
Ben. What about? Did you watch the one where it was like the story of how our name came to be?
Earth Hippo.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was like 90% factually accurate. It was actually extremely accurate. I was laughing the entire time.
Oh, okay. All right. So then, okay, if you think they're last, and then what about the other two? BTS versus JD.
I don't know.
You have to go with BTS.
I do.
Yeah,
I guess.
you have to go. So he's a Philly. He's biased. He's not.
I work with him the most.
Yeah.
What a load of shit.
But
Moonduck 5th. After this comment.
you keep dropping. There's no studios left.
Whatever.
He keeps
Not
pushing them
driving you
lower.
home now.
Okay. All right.
Moonduck 6th.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, any last words you guys want to say? Anything you want to point out? Any last comments?
We want people to come out to ESL New York.
That's
No,
right. Okay. Yeah.
Last time it wasn't that great because we couldn't talk to anyone. Like we were like hidden in the back behind some
exactly.
doors, and ESL Frankfurt, you're like in the stadium and you're like right above the crowd, but it felt a little bit disconnected. And
They'll definitely get opportunities to meet with fans this time. There's going to be a much closer area for even the players to interact with fans. Even get a chance to play some one-on-ones with them maybe, and some other fun, cool stuff there. Potentially some virtual reality stuff. I don't know. But get the tickets.
Why would you just pull that out of
I don't
nowhere?
know.
That's
I don't
worth
know.
it.
It was kinda
VR is
random.
so cool. Did you not do the Valve one?
No, he said maybe. I don't know. That's what I was pointing out, not the actual virtual
But yeah.
reality. I heard really good things about it.
Yeah.
You didn't do it?
No, I didn't do it.
Well,
I was
maybe
working the whole time.
That was a mistake. That was a huge mistake.
maybe you'll get to correct it in New York if there's VR there.
If there's a VR there, I don't know.
Maybe.
Maybe there will be. All right. Well, get your tickets. It's not too late. You can get the tickets now and meet us. 3 of us at New York. Both these guys are going to be there. They're going to be on panel. They're going to be casting.
You're going to be there?
So I will be there.
Are you
I
gonna be
won't
doing
I won't
interviews?
be doing interviews. As part of my new job, I have other things that I have to handle when I'm there.
Like be on the panel and ask us questions
No,
like
I'm not
an
going to be
interviewer.
like this. This is the whole plan. The whole time I was like, I'm going to get a job at ESL. I'm going to put myself on the panel. That was the plan. So no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be like 0 or you get out.
Your other job is to tell us where to eat food while we're there.
Exactly.
As well.
I have a whole plan for
Okay.
where we're going to eat. We're going to get some.
I need a flow chart, basically.
Okay.
Like,
We're going to
do
get
I
some
want
good food.
potatoes? Do I want to eat fish?
You can eat
What time
anything
is
in
We're
New
going to get
York.
some lobster rolls. We're going to get some ramen.
Yes.
We're going to
all
get
that.
some Shake Shack burgers.
Yeah.
It'll be
That
good.
place is overrated.
I wanna get
I went
fat.
there.
Did you went to the one in New York?
I went to the one across from the hotel that we had.
Okay.
But it was
Was it better than In-N-Out?
yes. But I don't like In-N-Out that much. It's not.
Okay.
I think Five Guys is better than Shake Shack.
Okay. Well, we'll let Purge be the decider on that one.
Okay.
You also think
I'm a
Moonduck
burger
is
connoisseur.
6th, so I don't really trust your opinion.
True.
But all right. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. This is Merlini and Purge. You can follow them. At the bottom, you'll see that. Yeah, there we go. Whoosh.
Bottom
Nice.
6th.
And come out to ESL One New York and
6.85.
6.85. Yeah.
It's gonna be the first
Thank
tournament.
you. Thanks for calling. Okay.